Good morning.
Morning, sir.
This is lesson number 4. Today is September the 24th, the year of 2023. Topic of today's lesson is EHUD, FREES, Israel. Just like Deke, I'm not too familiar with how to pronounce any of these words. So it says EHUD, FREES, Israel. Lesson text, we in Judges, the 3rd chapter, 15th through the 25th verse, and then we drop down to the 29th to the 30th verse. The time is 1316 BC. The place says near Gilgad, Jordan River Valley, and Moab. The golden text, when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised them up, a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Gera, or Jera, however you want to say it, a Benjamite. That's Judges, the 3rd chapter, the 15th verse. Today's aim, the facts to show how Ehud delivered the people of Israel from the Moabites using the strength God gave him. The principle is to show that God cares for his people and delivers them through leaders who act in his strength. And the application is to establish that God provides the leaders we need as well as the strength those leaders need to help us. Ehud frees Israel. You know, though we are still talking about the Israelites, I know it's kind of puzzling to you as to why we would jump from Joshua to Judges. We've been jumping, and every time we've jumped, there has always been a significant reason why. You know, so they have jumped from Joshua to Judges. And in this lesson, you see, well, actually, if you'd have went back a few, then you'd have saw that Jericho was taken from them. You know, and how could Jericho be taken from somebody that God promised Jericho to?
That's all it's about.
Like I said before, if you read through this whole book, everything that you read about would be based on, can somebody get me some water? Everything that you will read about will be based on obedience and discipline. Without obedience and discipline, things happen. You have to face your consequences for your actions. You know, everybody has a choice to make, and after you make that choice, what comes along with that choice that you cannot decide on, what happens is the consequences. So once God allows you to make that choice, and you've decided to make the choice that you wanted to make, those consequences that comes along with that choice is something you're going to have to deal with. And I want y'all to pay attention to the fact that God has never lied.
No.
God promised Abraham something, and that promise stayed within Abraham's family. And it remains in Abraham's family. And as I talked to y'all the other day about the harlot, what was that harlot's name? Rahab. So, as I talked to y'all about that harlot Rahab, and I let y'all understand that once Rahab came out of the city of Jericho, she no longer associated herself with those people. She started chanting Israelite. Israelite. That's what she started chanting, because that's who she belonged to at that time. Now, understanding why she would chant Israelite is because of the promise that God has made.
That's right.
God made that promise to Abraham. Abraham's lineage goes all the way through to Israel. And who knows Abraham's lineage? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, if you pay attention to the the people that they were battling against. If you look on the opposite sides of Abraham's lineage, those that was not through his promise, because Abraham had other kids outside of his promise. Sarah was where he was supposed to be, and outside of his promise is where Israel came in his promise. The Moabites, they were outside of his promise. Moab, okay? Moab was born outside of his promise. So all of these that they were battling against were descendants outside of his promise. So if you think about it, if everyone back in these days would have stuck to a straight and narrow and kept God's word and stayed on his promise and not strayed away, this world would be perfect. But see, this world isn't perfect because people decided to do what they wanted to do. And you will see here that, I'm saying here, but it's before this, you will see that Jericho was taken because they failed to follow all of God's rules. Mm-hmm. And when they took Jericho, the rule was, take nothing for yourself.
That's right.
Kill everything. Destroy everything. Mm-hmm. Leave nothing. The only thing that they were supposed to keep was Rahab and her family. That was it.
That was it.
But as you go through the lesson, you'll find that instead of following those rules, there was one that decided he want this, and he took it, and he hid it, kept it to himself, thought he was hiding it, but he was only hiding it from the people. Can't hide nothing from God.
Right.
So he took this stuff, and on top of that, they didn't kill everybody. They kept some as slaves. That was not what God told them to do.
What God did.
So being disobedient is the reason Jericho was taken back from them. Mm-hmm. And it's been taken from them for quite some time. And Eglon, Ehud is the second judge that we're reading about now. The first one was Othniel. So once Othniel lost his life, and you'll notice that's how things go. Mm-hmm. When you stop doing what you're supposed to be doing, they take out the head.
Right.
Makes no sense in grabbing the tail end because you can't do anything with the tail end. Mm-hmm. If you take out the head, everything else will crumble. Right. Like if somebody was to run up into the United States right now, by coming to my house, taking me out, nobody will feel anything. Mm-hmm. Except for my family, maybe. But if you want the United States to actually feel the hit, you take out the head.
That's right.
Which if they run and take out the president, then that means that the president was not as protected as we thought he was. Mm-hmm. So if the president isn't protected, then we're just sitting ducks.
That's right.
So if you take out the head, everything else is going to fall. So what they ended up doing once the head leave, they goes back to doing whatever they want to do. Now, in this lesson here, we find that these are new generation.
Yeah.
These are not the ones that actually went through all of the stuff.
That's right.
This is the new generation. And like I was saying before, if you keep to yourself the things that you have gone through from the past to get to where you are today, the new generation don't understand the fight. And if they don't understand the fight, what's the point in fighting? That's how they feel about it.
Yeah.
So being that this is the new generation, they started going back to worshiping idols. Yeah. And reading through this lesson, you find that they started marrying off daughters to their sons. Mm-hmm. That's incest,
Yeah.
A daddy would have a son and a daughter, and he'd say you two would be great together. How does that look? That's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
I know it happened back in the day, but it was authorized by God for a purpose.
That's right.
And God didn't really go into saying, okay, this is your brother and your sister, y'all are together. It was more of, these are twins. One's a male and one's a female. These are also twins. So we're going to just cross up. Okay, you date my sister and I date your sister. That's how things went like that. But right here, it was saying that God said, well, not God, but they said, I'm going to give you my daughter. And they are brothers and sisters. So God didn't like these things. Mm-hmm. God says, y'all started doing all this craziness, everything that I said that I didn't want y'all to do. You went to doing it. You started doing everything that I told you not to do. So it's time for this to end. So that's when Eglon comes in. Mm-hmm. Eglon, whatever you want to say. That's when he comes into play. And he was king for 18 years. Right. Tormented them for 18 long years. Mm-hmm. So it says here, but when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised them up a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Gera, a Benjamite, a man left-handed. And by him the children of Israel sent a present unto Eglon, the king of Moab. And with that name Moab again. Moab, the Moabites, they were on the other side of Abraham's lineage. They wasn't through the promise. So I'm just guessing, and this is just me talking, I'm just guessing that they started looking at all of the things that Abraham's promised few was getting, and they said he loved them better than he loved us. They gets all of this stuff, and we don't get none of it. I can't stand my brothers on that other side. I can't stand them because they getting everything that I'm not getting. They getting all of the inheritance. Why I can't get none of the inheritance? They started hating on that side. So being that they started hating, they became into war with each other. Mm-hmm. And that's just my personal opinion as to how this thing went. Yeah. They just had a personal vendetta against each other. So right here, I done told you now, this is Abraham's lineage now. So it says, but when the children of Israel, okay, the children of Israel, they cried unto the Lord raised them up a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Gera, which is a Benjamite. Okay, now, where does Benjamin come from? Benjamite means that he came from the tribe of Benjamin, if y'all was trying to figure that out. Okay, so where did Benjamin come from? One of Jacob's sons. So how does Israel play a part into this? How does Israel play a part into this if Benjamin came from the lineage of Abraham, which Benjamin was one of Jacob's sons? How is Israel playing a part in this?
God was using that tribe to deliver the people again.
See, y'all are dancing. I like how your feet move, and y'all are dancing, but you're dancing all around everything. Okay, let's break this down. Abraham is the father of all.
Right.
Okay, so it's Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the lineage. Mm-hmm. That's the promised lineage. Mm-hmm. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob is the father of Benjamin. Benjamin is the father of Gera. Gera is the father of Ehud. Okay, so how does Israel fall into this promise? It is so simple. Y'all just ain't paying attention.
Jacob?
Huh?
Because it's just like you say, it's
They
the
were
lineage
Israelites.
because who be God, they don't.
Okay, Deke.
You know they changed their name.
Deke, what was that you said?
Jacob.
Because of Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob's name is Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the lineage come from Jacob. Jacob is Israel. So when they say the children of Israel, they're saying the lineage that is descendant from Jacob. Okay, so that is everybody. So when Rahab shouted out, she is Israel, Rahab was stating that she is following God. I'm no longer going to be a pagan. I am going to follow God. Right. I am Israel. I am following the lineage. I want to be a part of this promise. That's what she was stating. Now, there's a city. It says here the children of Israel cried unto the Lord because they made a mistake.
Yeah.
They knew they messed up. So they knew they were being punished. So they cried to God. And because they cried to God, that certain area was named Bokim. Bokim means the weepers, the criers. So it was named Bokim because they cried to God. Because they know they made a mistake. They know they messed up. So they was asking God for help again. And again, God sends them a deliverer, which that deliverer is EHUD, which is a left-handed man. Yeah. Being left-handed was not that strange. The thing about being left-handed was nobody showed that they were left-handed. Dominance was right-handed. Right-handed was strength, power, and loyalty. Being left-handed, it didn't show strength, but it showed honor and loyalty. Now, him being left-handed, it threw them off a bit because when he went through these doors, they being checked, but because everybody is predominantly right-handed, they were searched on that side.
Well, teacher, can I bring this a bit? I was thinking there's a guy there, dead gone, years ago, called Gus, out of Zion, South Carolina. And he built a car shelter. Them 2x4s and whatnot, using one arm man. That man had one strength in that arm, and he built that shelter by himself. He put that shelter up with that one arm.
The thing is, you use what God give you.
Yeah.
You use what God give you, and when you use what God give you, God makes sure that it is strong enough to handle the task. It's never about you.
That's it.
It's always about God, because no way that Ehud could have did all of this by himself. Any battle that you fight, any problem you face, when you get through it, it was never you. It was always God. It was never you. See, but where our problem starts lying in is when you come out of these problems and these situations, you clear out it was all you. If I hadn't have done this, this wouldn't have happened. It was never about you. And see, you're placed in situations like that because God wants you to let people know how you came out. Don't tell people that you did it because you know you didn't. It was all God.
Yeah, God did it all.
But Ehud made him a dagger which had 2 edges of a cubit in length, and he did gird it under his raiment upon his right thigh. He put it on his right thigh because being right-handed, he was most likely to be searched on his left side because that's where they would have been carrying their weapons. Because it's easier to grab your weapons on your left side with your right hand. So being that most of them were right-handed, they weren't searching for that dagger on that right side. Now, a lot of them that was in the Israelites' army, they were ambidextrous. Okay, so what that means is they were able to use both sides. They can shoot a bow and arrow from their right as well as their left. Yeah. They can swing a sword from their right as well as their left. So they were dangerous either way you went. But they wasn't checked as being left-handed people. They was checked as being right-handed people. Now, this dagger that they made, it wasn't a sword. It was a knife. Knife with the point, two sides.
Yeah.
It was a cubit in length. Now, a cubit in length is 1.5 feet. Many people don't know what a cubit is, but how they measured a cubit is basically from the inside of your elbow to where your wrist bends. That's about a cubit. You know, understanding that you're probably a average size person. My arms might not be as long as most, but that's about how they measure the cubit. So a cubit foot is about 1.5 feet, so 18 inches. So it was fairly long. And he put it in his right thigh. And he brought the present unto Eglon, king of Moab. And Eglon was a very fat man. They gave this gift to Ehud to bring to this king. Because that's all the king did. The king, that how they were able to stay without being tortured and tormented, they had to bring the king a gift. They always had to bring the king something in order for the king not to bother him. And you see it says the king was a fat man. And being a fat man, it didn't mean that he was just fat. It's just out of shape. What that means is he was that wealthy. Okay, this king was able to get and do whatever he wanted to do at any given time. So if he wanted to eat, he was going to eat. So that's what it means by being fat. This king, he was a big man. He was fat. I mean, it was literally fat. He was fat. Okay, but yes,
That's how they got to him.
he was greedy.
Real rich man.
This man was very greedy. So, and when he had made an end to offer the present, he sent away the people that bear the present. So I'm guessing that this gift that he had was a rather large gift, and it probably weighed quite a bit because he didn't carry it in. He had others with him to carry it. So if you had to have more than one person to carry this gift to the king, then this gift had to have been either large gift or heavy gift. But the interesting thing here is after he presented the gift, he sent his men away. He sent those men away and told them to go on back. I got something else I need to take care of here. So he made sure that his people were safe and out of harm's way. But he himself turned again from the quarries that were by Gilgad and said, I have a secret errand unto thee, O king, who said, keep silence. And all that stood by him went out from him. So when he returned back to the king, he told the king, he says, look, I got a secret message that I'm supposed to tell you. And being that it's a secret, you know how it is. If somebody came to you and says, I have a secret that I need to tell you, most likely you're going to send everybody out the way. Or you're going to leave and get into an area where it's just you and them. Right. So the king sent away all the people that was around because he had a secret message. He didn't want nobody else to see it. It was a secret. It was a big secret because Ehud didn't want nobody to know what he was about to do. It was a real big secret. So being that it was this big secret, the king says, y'all leave us alone. And they closed the doors behind them and everybody just walked off because the king didn't feel any threat because they had just bought him a gift. So why would you feel threatened by somebody that just give you a gift? And I know the gift had to be worth something because the king just looked at it and let them go. So this gift was worth something. It was worth enough for the king to feel comfortable in sitting in this room with him alone. So, and Ehud came unto him, and he was sitting in a summer parlor, which he had for himself alone. And Ehud said, I have a message from God unto thee. And he arose out of his seat. Now, he was sitting in his summer parlor. Okay, so I'm just going to say it like this. He was sitting in his man cave. All right? He was sitting in his one and only, that one spot that nobody is allowed to go in unless he say, hey, you can come on in here. All right. So he was comfortable. In his spot, he was comfortable. And Ehud says, I have a message from God. Now, I don't know how y'all would feel about somebody telling you today that somebody got a message from God for you. Most people would be like, yeah, okay, whatever. Because we don't think of having a message from God as being that important anymore. I don't know why, but us, the new generation is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Us being this new generation, we don't believe that God is really talking to us like people say they should be, because we don't believe in God like we're supposed to. I know we go to church and we praise and we worship and we say, God, I thank you and God, I love you, but we really don't believe that God is really that way. So when somebody will come to us and say, I got a message sent from you from God, you will listen and you'll probably appreciate what they got to say, but you don't really believe it. You don't, because if you really did believe it, you would drop everything that you're doing. Mm-hmm. So we don't really believe these things. We know God existed. We know God is here. We know God is for us, but we don't really believe God like that, which is weird, because God is the reason that we're still doing these things. So Ehud told him this message, and anxiously he rose up out of his seat to hear what this message was, because he really wanted to know. Now, that's just me, paraphrasing. I don't know if he rose up anxiously or did he raise up because he was nervous or what. I don't know why he rose up, but I'm guessing that he rose up because he was anxious, because there has been a lot of talk about God talking to people back then. Mm-hmm. And whenever God talked, people listened, even those that said they didn't believe in God. They listen. All those pagans, whenever somebody came and said, God said, oh, that was enough for them. Mm-hmm. They listened. Mm-hmm. So when he said, I got a message sent from God, King Eglon rose up because he wanted to hear what he had to say. And Ehud put forth his left hand and took the dagger from his right thigh and thrust it into his belly. So when he said, I have a message from God, I'm guessing he leaned into him and said, this is the message. And as he leaned in, he reached down with his left hand because it was unnoticed. Mm-hmm. Reached in with his left hand, pulled out his dagger, and stabbed him. And the message was, you are going to die today. Mm-hmm. And the haft also went in after the blade, and the fat closed upon the blade, so that he could not draw the dagger out of the belly, and the dirt came out. Mm-hmm. All right, so the whole blade went in. Even the part that his hand was on went in. The whole blade itself, the handle and blade went in. And his belly fat covered everything up. So he couldn't pull it out even if he wanted to.
That's right.
And it says, and the dirt came out. Now, if you're reading more than just one Bible, you see that it says his bowels. He emptied his bowels. Mm-hmm. So that's the dirt. Yeah. It says the dirt came out. So it went in just that far that it penetrated his whole body. Matter of fact, he even said that the blade came out of his back. So there was nothing anybody could have done at this point. He was done for. But because it was a secret, nobody was around to witness what happened. Mm-hmm. Then Ehud went forth through the porch and shut the doors of the parlor upon him and locked it. So Ehud just walked on out as if everything was okay, locked the door, Now, if you're watching TV and you're watching these things, I've tried doing this. I've watched the shows, but on the shows, you don't get what the Bible say.
No.
You know, because on the shows you watch and you see who climb out the window and leave. But in the Bibles, you see that it says Ehud walked out and locked the doors behind him. Mm-hmm. So he can't lock the doors behind him if he climbed out the window.
Okay.
So Ehud walked out the doors, locked the doors. But see, the strange thing is, remind you, I said that this was like his man cave. This was his place. So with that door being locked, they felt like he was doing something important that he didn't want nobody to interrupt. So they stayed away for as long as that door was locked. They didn't try to enter until it went on a little too long.
Yeah.
That's the only time when they tried. By that time, Ehud was long gone. Because God fixed it that way. Not because Ehud planned it that way. God fixed it that way. See, look, y'all got to understand how this works. The book of Judges. This is the warrior's book. You are a fighter if you're in this book. You are somebody that's not trying to back down from nobody. If you're in the book of Judges, you're going to fight. There ain't no talking. You going to fight. Now, they talked in Exodus. They talked a lot in Genesis. They talked in Joshua. But in Judges, they don't talk. See, when they say judges, they don't mean somebody that's going to judge you. When they say judges, they mean I'm the head of the soldiers. Mm-hmm. I am what the army says the boss. Mm-hmm. So when I say go, we go. See, this is the judges. We are fighters. Mm-hmm. So if we are true Christians, we would be in the book of Judges because we should be fighters. This is where we would be. So when he was gone out, servants came, and when they saw that, behold, the doors of the parlor were locked. They said, surely he covereth his feet and his summer chamber. So, like I said before, he locked the doors. That's how they felt. They felt like he locked the doors because he was in there doing something he didn't want to be disturbed with. So they left him alone for quite a while until it just went too long. They thought he was using the latrine. So, being that it was that long, they thought that he was in his chambers. And they tarried till they were ashamed. They sat so long till they just thought about it for a minute. They said, you know what? There's no way he could be in there this long. And behold, he opened not the doors of the parlor. Therefore they took a key and opened them, and behold, their Lord was fallen down dead on the earth.
That's right.
It really wouldn't have mattered how quickly they'd have went in there. The only difference would have been Ehud wouldn't have been as far as he ended up. But the king is dead. Mm-hmm. What happens when the king dies? What happens when you cut the serpent's head off? What happens? Everything else leaves. Everything else dies. Right. If you take out the head, everything else is done for. So, being that King Eglon is now gone, they can take back what's rightfully theirs. Understand that God works he works kind of strange. All right. And when I say he works kind of strange, God don't ever do what you think he should do. God does things that he know is the best. So when, let's say for instance, you're asking God for money. You say, God, I need a certain amount of money because this is coming up. Father, I just wish that you help me out and give it to me. 9 times out of 10, God is going to put somebody in your face that has more financial problems than you do. Mm-hmm. Because he wants you to understand that what you're asking for, you don't really need it, because there's others out there that need it far worse than you do.
That's right.
See, God puts things right there so that you can understand that these things that you're asking for, they're petty. Ask me for something real. When you're asking God for money, you're being petty. Because God says work and he'll give it. But when you're just sitting there saying, hey, I need this and I need that because this isn't doing so well, this ain't doing so well, God's going to place all these things that you're asking for in your face, but it's going to be from somebody else.
Amen.
He might even fix it where the very thing that you're asking for, he's going to fix it where you have to end up giving it away because somebody else needs it more than you do. See, Ehud, he thought that he would just be the leader, the one that's just going to help him out. But Ehud became the one that they depended on. Ehud was the fighter. So Ehud never imagined, he never thought that he would be going up there battling kings. But Ehud was, according to the book of Judges, Ehud was one of the good ones. Ehud reigned there for over 80 years. Joshua was another good one. Joshua ended up dying. He was 110.
Yeah.
So as long as they were doing what God asked them to do, God was making sure that his promises stayed with them. So what do y'all think would happen if we don't let our generations know what went on, what perspired in our lives? The things we had to go through to get to where we at? What do you think will happen? Matter of fact, you ain't got to think. You can just look and see what's going on now. Because right now, you see little children killing little children.
That's right.
Just since Monday, I've seen 6 people got shot. 3 died, all under the age of 35.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they don't know. Well, they know, they just don't understand where they came from. See, they wasn't fighting each other back in the day. Mm-hmm. They were fighting for survival. And now, if you look at each other wrong, you got a problem. Despite of what's going on all over the news, where you see they're trying to bring things or take things back to where it used to be. Prime example. I know I talked a little bit about it last week when you had kids not wanting to go to school these days. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you actually look at how things are going now, they're taking it back to online schooling. You can get taught without leaving your house, sitting in front of the computer, online. Let me tell you the problem with that. You don't have a teacher. Nobody cares whether you get it or not. Mm-hmm. And you're going back to, we're not in school anymore. Mm-hmm. When that's all we fought to do was go to school. Now, we're not in school anymore. So that's exactly where they want us to be. Because they know as long as we're not made to go to school, when we're sitting home in front of these computers, we don't care what we take in. I get it done when I get it done. But you're not learning anything. See, on these computers, what they really give you is hours. If you got the right amount of hours, you pass. It's not about whether you learned the information, it's about hours. You got 36 hours, you pass. But you still can't tell time.
It's America. If you go over to overseas, we don't want education.
Oh yeah. So enough.
So, and they slew of Moab at that time about 10,000 men, all lusty, and all men of valor, and there escaped not a man. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest 80. So what I'm saying here is, as long as you follow God's command, anything is possible.
That's right.
You know, these little bit of men that were, see, they were slaves. They were slaves in this area that God had already gave them. They lost it and became slaves because they decided to do what they want to do and not what God told them to do. So they were a little bit of men that came up and said, you know what, we're going to take back what they took from us. And God was with them.
Amen.
Y'all get that part? God was with them.
Amen.
As long as God is, just like God was with them when Jericho fell. They didn't have to do anything when Jericho fell because God was with them. God made Jericho fall.
Yeah.
Only thing God says is, do what I say do and be there. Going to Sunday school or sitting out in the congregation. You know, there's two words that people got to really understand, and that's come and go. Okay, when you come, when God says come, that means he wants you to learn something. When God says go, that means he wants you to take the information that you just learned and share it. So when people say, I want you to come to my church, it don't mean I want you to come and do something. I want you to come, relax, and learn. But when they send you out and say, go, spread whatever information you know. If they didn't tell you anything today, then there's something that you got deep down inside that you got to share with somebody. Whatever that might be, you got to share it with somebody. Because this world it's not built or designed for us to fail. But we make it that way.
That's right.
The reason we're not getting the things that's owed to us is because we don't want it. We want to give it to somebody else. We want somebody else to have it. We want somebody else to own it. Businesses.
Yeah.
I hate to say it like this, but
That's true.
but businesses, if you look around, and I'm not going to sound racist or anything. I don't want to sound racist. I don't want to be racist or nothing like that. But there is a difference. It's all about how you feel about yourself. When I first started my business, you know, I had a lot of people tell me that you ain't got no business running a white man's business. And I'm like, define a white man's business. White man's business is nothing more than the business the black man don't feel like they're capable of running.
That's right.
So you put yourself down. So I don't want nobody to come and run around and say, because of this racist situation going on, I can't do that. No, it's not that. It's you. Right. Racist, that only applies in your own head. You can go out there in the streets, and I guarantee as a black person, you would get more help from the white man than you would the black man. It has nothing to do with being racist. It's got a whole lot to do with you. You put yourself down. You can't accomplish certain things because you don't want to. You don't try. Ain't nobody else holding you back but you. When I ain't stayed straight away from this lesson. I haven't. What I'm trying to say is when you go out there and God has certain things out there for you, the reason you ain't got it is because you didn't want it.
That's it.
It ain't got nothing to do with anybody else. You lost the things that belong to you because you didn't do the necessary steps to keep it. You, nobody else. Ehud took back Jericho because he did what God told him to do. Mm-hmm. He kept God in there with him. And after he did everything that God asked him to do to subdue King Eglon, he went back and said, let's go back and get it, for God has given it back to us. He didn't say he said God has given this back to us. So stop pointing fingers at anybody. Everything that you're going through, Ain't nobody else's fault. It's all you. I know I have some things going on in my life too, and I can't blame nobody for it. It's all me. So no, I'm not talking to certain people in here. We all here for ourselves. We got our own information. So you know what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing. That's what you need to do. Whatever it is you need to be doing is what you should be out there doing. I'm going to turn this over to the hands of the superintendent.